Hello, this is Dr. Mike Brooks. I'm a licensed psychologist and the director of the Austin Psychology and Assessment Center, or ApaCenter. I've been doing a multi-part series on the issue of does video game violence cause children and adolescents to become violent? And in this segment, we're going to look at crime trends in the United States over the last 40 or so years, where we have the data. So the reason I'm doing this is because, when we talk about video game violence and everything, people have a lot of concerns, and we see, we went through the evolution of violence in games, and we talked about how many kids are playing them and how many hours. We've covered that in some of the other segments. So now we've got, oh my gosh, look at this. It's just a cocktail of things that is going to cause the world to go to hell in a handbasket. And when you watch the news, and as I give this segment, the bombing at the Boston Marathon just happened, another tragedy. And then recently we had the shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, where 26 people were killed, and we look at those things and we see them on the media and we hear about them and we're like, oh my God, we're really, this society's going to hell in a handbasket. It's just horrible out there, and in psychology they call this a hostile world, that people believe the world to be fairly hostile. And in studies, when they look at this, people vastly overestimate the chance of being assaulted and things like this. When we look at the statistics, it conflicts with what we might think is happening in the world. So let's take a look at that. And so for this first graph is violent crime. It's if you wanted to verify some of this, you can look this up on the internet, and that there are FBI crime statistics and other things that you can look at from reputable sources. So this is from the FBI Uniform Crime Report, and this goes all the way back to 1900 to 2010, murders per 100,000 Americans. And you can see from 1960s it was fairly low, and then it went up, but recently in the last decade, we're at the lowest levels in the last 110 years for murders per 100,000 Americans. And again, you probably wouldn't know it from watching the news. There's that saying, if it bleeds, it leads, and that's really true. And I've seen some statistics on this, but I don't have it off the top of my head. But if you looked in the last 30 or 40 years at the media coverage of violent crime, it's gone up exponentially, while the actual crimes have gone down. But because the coverage has gone up, and now nothing between Twitter and our news feeds and push notifications and everything, we can access this 24/7. You'd think it's happening left and right, these assaults and murders. So here's another graph, trends in violent crime. Violent crime offense figure. Estimated number of offenses, and this is from the FBI Uniform Crime Reports. You can see that trend line, and this is just from 2007 to 2011, how it's gone down. Now again, there can be multiple reasons why this has gone down. Better law enforcement and laws, or the reportings have changed. There could be many factors. Just saying, if we look at this, though, the trend is downward. Violent crime and video game sales. This is a really interesting graph. So you can see on the red line shows video game revenue, and this is 1995 to 2010. And then you've got the violent crime, and this isn't just kids, but adults as well, just violent crimes. And you can see this trend of violent crimes going down, yet the video game sales are going up. So as video games become more and more popular, and the violence level and the depictions of violence become more graphically detailed and in some cases more realistic, the violent crime in society is still going down. I mean, I guess one could argue it'd be going down much further if it weren't for video games, but it's sort of, I'd say, undeniable that if video games had a huge impact on behavior, with the number of players there are and everything, and the number of people who play some of the more violent games, if it had that big of an impact, we would start seeing it in places like this. So here's more statistics on violent crime. And this graph goes up to 2007, number of incidents, and it has different age levels by perceived age of the offender. So you see in the black the juveniles, and you can see again the trend line is down. Now I don't know why in about 2005 or 6 it drops so much, but again, the overall message is the trend line is down. On to this next one is homicides in U.S. schools, and this goes 1992 to 2012. And you can see from this graph is, there's some variation in the years, but overall, it's fairly low. Now, one might not have thought it would be so low, and even going back to 92, there's people killed in schools and shootings in schools, but you'd think, well, with video games since 1992 to 2012 have become much more violent, that we'd see huge spikes. The spikes generally, and you can see the most recent in 2012 is a spike, but that's 26 people killed in Newtown, Connecticut. So it's one mass shooting. So, I mean, that is a horrible tragedy, and that's why we're having this kind of conversation to look at, what's going on here and how much are video games to blame for incidents like that. So going on to the next points here. So let's talk about those school shootings. So about questions about video game violence and school shootings. So one of the questions is, how is it that video games have gotten more ubiquitous and graphically detailed, but school shootings have generally gone down, or at least not, gone way up? Another point, and Ferguson brought this up, he was the one who did the meta-analysis that found that there was a publication bias in the research. It's Christopher Ferguson, and he brought this point up. How is it that an almost universal activity, boys playing violent video games, can be blamed for causing an exceedingly rare event, like a school shooting? If video games have a big influence, why wouldn't we see many, many more school shootings than we have right now? And then the last point, how often do kids play violent video games without going out and shooting or assaulting people? So, you have millions of players, literally millions of players in just the US of these violent games, and there's this rare event of a school shooting or something, but if it did cause a big effect on behavior, we would see many more school shootings. We'd see rates in crime statistics that would be off the charts, and that's not what we're seeing. So we've got to look more closely at it, and that isn't to say there aren't concerns. We just want to have a balanced view. So in the next segment, I'm going to go into some more thoughts about the video game violence and pull some points together, and then what to do about it. As a parent, and I'm a parent with 3 boys, that question comes up, what am I supposed to do as a parent to help guide my children in their video game play, and to ensure that whatever negative effects video games have, that they're minimized or eliminated. Okay, well, thanks so much for joining me today. This was part 6 of our series. It's a long series, but thanks for sticking with me. We've got 1 or 2 more segments we're going to do on this topic and be wrapped up. I hope you'll come back, because I'm trying to pull it all together for you and give you some guidance on what to do as a parent. So again, my name is Dr. Mike Brooks. I'm a licensed psychologist and the director of the Austin Psychology and Assessment Center, or ApaCenter. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you back soon.